The hall was filled with noise, the sound of victory songs, and the smell of burning torches. Men shouted, women clapped, and the leaders of the city sat high on their golden chairs. In the middle of this great celebration stood one man, the hero of the battle. His name was Kale. Kale had fought bravely in the border wars. He had risked his life many times, leading soldiers through fire and blood. The people respected him, and the leaders wanted to honor him. He stood tall, his armor scratched and dirty, but his eyes strong. Tonight he would receive his reward. Kale expected gold, land, or maybe a great weapon made of rare steel. His heart beat fast as the drums began to thunder. Then the leader raised his hand, and the hall grew silent. Kale of the Iron Battalion. The leader announced, for your courage, your loyalty, and your victory, we give you this. The doors of the hall opened, and 2 guards entered. Chains rattled. The crowd gasped. Between the guards walked a woman. She was not human. Her skin was pale silver, shining faintly under the firelight. Strange, glowing patterns moved across her arms like living tattoos. Her eyes were bright and sharp, like twin stars, but filled with rage. A heavy collar of iron was locked around her neck, and thick chains bound her wrists. Kale froze. His reward was a living being. The leader smiled coldly. This is your prize. An alien woman captured from the outer war. She is strong, dangerous, and beautiful. She is yours now, to command as you wish. The hall erupted in cheers. Men shouted, a slave for the hero. Others laughed and whistled. Kale did not smile. He looked at the alien woman, and she stared back at him with hatred. Her eyes did not beg for mercy. Her eyes promised death. Kale's hand tightened on his sword. This was no reward. This was a curse. The guards pushed the woman forward until she fell at Kale's feet. The chains clanged loudly. She lifted her head slowly, her glowing eyes fixed on his face. For a moment, the world seemed silent. He felt as if she could see through him, reading his thoughts, judging him. The leader's voice cut through the silence. Take her. She belongs to you now. Do with her as you wish. She is your property, your slave, your prize. The crowd cheered again, but Kale's heart was heavy. He had fought for honor, not for chains. That night, Kale led the alien woman to his home. The city streets were still alive with noise and celebration, but he walked in silence. The chains dragged behind them, clinking against the stones. Inside his house, he closed the door and lit a single lamp. He looked at her closely for the first time. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her silver skin seemed almost alive, and the strange glowing lines on her body shifted slowly, like rivers of light. But her face was proud, her jaw strong, her eyes burning with fire. Even in chains, she did not look weak. She looked like a queen who had been thrown into a cage. Kale spoke softly, unsure if she could understand. I did not ask for this. I did not ask for you. The woman said nothing. She only stared. Her breathing calm but sharp, like a predator waiting for the right time to strike. He placed food and water near her, but she did not touch them. She turned her head away, refusing to eat like an animal. Kale sighed. He sat across from her, watching her carefully. He could feel the tension in the air, like a storm about to break. This woman was not broken, not defeated. She was waiting for her chance. That night, Kale could not sleep. He lay awake, listening. The house was quiet, but sometimes he heard her chains move. Sometimes he heard a sound, low and strange, like a hum or a whisper. He could not tell if it was her voice or something else, something inside her. He turned to look at her in the darkness. She sat still, her eyes glowing faintly in the shadows, and for a moment, he felt fear. Not fear of her strength, but fear of what she was. Who was this woman? Where had she come from? What power did she carry within her chained body? Asked the night. Grew deeper, Cale realized something. This was no reward. This was the beginning of a story he could not control, and in her burning eyes, he saw a truth that made his blood run cold. This alien woman would change his life forever. The night was heavy with silence. Outside, the city still celebrated, but inside Cale's house there was no laughter, no music, only the sound of chains. The alien woman sat in the corner, her wrists bound, her glowing eyes never leaving him. Cale tried to sleep, but his body would not rest. He had fought beasts on the battlefield, faced blades and arrows, yet the quiet stare of this chained woman filled him with unease. Sometimes, in the darkness, he heard her whisper. The words were not human. They sounded like a song and a warning. At the same time, the air around her seemed to vibrate with strange energy, like a storm trapped inside her skin. He rose from his bed and lit the lamp. Her eyes reflected the light like twin blades. She did not move, but her presence filled the room. "Why do you whisper?" Cale asked. His voice was low, almost afraid. The woman tilted her head, but said nothing. Instead, her eyes closed, and for a brief moment, the glowing lines across her body pulsed brighter. Then everything was still again. Cale's heart pounded. Was she praying? Was she calling for others of her kind? Or was she planning her escape? The next morning, Cale gave her bread and water. She refused again. Her chains rattled when she turned away. "You will starve," he warned. Her lips curved into something that was not a smile. Her voice finally broke the silence. It was rough, broken, like someone learning a new tongue. Not need. Cale froze. She could speak his language at least a little. "You understand me?" he said. The woman's eyes narrowed. She spoke again, slowly, every word heavy. "Understand. Enough." That day, Cale left to walk through the city. Everywhere, people still talked about his reward. Some envied him. Others laughed and whispered ugly jokes about what he might do with the alien woman. But Cale kept his face hard. He said nothing. When he returned home, the door was slightly open. His chest tightened. He drew his sword and stepped inside. The room was empty. The chains lay broken on the floor. He spun around, ready to fight. But then he saw her. The alien woman stood by the window, her wrists free, the collar still glowing faintly on her neck. In her hand, she held his blade. She turned the weapon slowly, studying it. Then, to Cale's surprise, she walked forward and placed the sword in his hand. Cale stared at her in disbelief. "Why?" Her voice was sharper now, though still broken. "If I want, you dead," she said. "You die." Long ago, the meaning was clear. She had the chance to kill him, but she had chosen not to. Cale lowered his sword slowly. He looked. Into her eyes, there was no fear in them, no weakness. There was only fire. "Then why stay?" he asked. Her answer came like a whisper, but it carried weight. "Because I wait." That night, Cale chained her again, not because he believed it would hold her, but because he did not know what else to do. She allowed it, sitting silently as the iron locked once more around her wrists. As the lamp flickered, Cale sat across. From her, he wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you wait for? But he did not speak. Instead, the silence grew heavy again. The woman's eyes closed, and she began to hum softly, a strange tune from a faraway world. The sound made Cale's chest tighten. It was not human, but it was beautiful. Later that night, Cale woke suddenly. The lamp had gone out. The house was filled with shadows. He heard it again, the hum, louder this time. He turned and saw her, still chained, but the glowing lines across her body burned brighter than ever before. The air felt alive, thick with unseen power. The chains shook, as if something inside her wanted to break free. Kale whispered, "What are you?" Her eyes opened, shining in the darkness like twin stars. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, not slave. The words cut deep into Kale's chest. For the first time, he felt ashamed. Ashamed of the collar around her neck. Ashamed of the chains he had locked with his own hands. He wanted to speak, but before he could, the glow dimmed. The humming stopped. She lowered her head and closed her eyes again. But Kale knew the truth now. She was not just a prisoner. She was something far greater, something dangerous, and yet something alive with dignity. As he sat there in the darkness, he realized a new fear. This woman was not simply his to command. She was a storm, and storms cannot be chained forever. The third night was the hardest. Kale had grown used to the sound of chains moving in the dark, but tonight the silence was deeper. Too deep, his instincts strained in battle told him something was wrong. He opened his eyes. The lamp was out. Only moonlight slipped through the window. At first, the room looked empty. Then he froze. The chains were on the floor. The alien woman was gone. Kale's hand went to his sword, but his fingers met nothing. His weapon was missing. His heart pounded. He rose slowly, every muscle tight. From the shadows came a soft sound. Not the rattle of chains, not the hum he had heard before. It was the sound of breathing, calm, controlled. And then he saw her. She stood in the corner, holding his blade. The silver patterns on her skin glowed faintly in the moonlight. Her eyes locked on him, sharp and unreadable. She raised the sword slightly, the steel catching the light. Kale braced for attack, but then she flipped the blade in her hand, turned it around, and offered the handle to him. Kale blinked, stunned. "You had your chance," he said slowly, his voice low and tense. "Why not kill me?" Her voice was quiet, broken, but steady. "If I kill you, I stay slave. If I wait, maybe free." Kale took the sword back, his grip trembling. This woman was not like any prisoner he had seen before. She was choosing patience, not violence. That was more dangerous. The next morning, Kale did not chain her as tightly. He left one wrist free, testing her. She did not run. She only watched. Him with those burning eyes. When he placed bread and water in front of her, she stared at it for a long time. Finally, she took a small bite. Her movements were slow, careful, as if even this act was part of some greater plan. Kale sat across from her. He wanted answers. "What is your name?" he asked, her lips pressed together. Then she whispered, "Lyra." "Gah." Name felt strange in his mouth when he repeated it. Lyra. Narrowed. Kale. She had learned his name too. It was the first real connection between them. Two names, spoken in a quiet room, heavy with meaning. That evening, Kale tried again. "Where do you come from?" Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then she pointed upward toward the night sky. Kale frowned. "Another world." She nodded once. Her eyes softened just for a moment, as if remembering something far away. Then the hardness returned. "Why were you captured?" Kale asked. Her jaw tightened. "War. Your kind. Take." Shame pressed against Kale's chest. He wanted to argue, to say he had not taken her, that he had only fought his own battles. But the truth was clear. She was right. His kind had captured her, chained her, given her away like a trophy. That night, as Kale lay awake, the sound came again, the low hum. Stronger now, pulsing through the walls like a heartbeat. He turned to see her sitting upright, eyes closed. the silver patterns on her body glowing brighter than ever. "Lyra," he whispered. Her eyes opened, and for the first time, he saw not anger, not hatred, but pain. "You are not safe," she said. Her voice was clearer now, the words sharper. "Your leaders want me as weapon. They will come." Cale's blood ran cold. He thought of the council, the leaders who had smiled as they gave her to him. Of course, they did not give her away out of kindness. They wanted her tested, controlled. And Cale was their test. The next day proved her right. A messenger came, ordering Cale to bring the alien woman to the fortress. They wanted to see her strength. Cale's hand tightened around the scroll. He looked back at Lyra. She sat quietly, but her eyes burned with a fire that told him she already knew. That evening, he unchained her wrists. She did not move. She only whispered, "Now you choose." Cale frowned. Choose what? Her gaze pierced him. Man of war, or man of honor? As the moon rose, Cale sat in silence. His reward had become a burden, and that burden had become something else, something alive, something real. Lyra was no slave, no prize. She was a storm waiting to be released, and for the first time, Cale understood the truth. His life was no longer his own. Their fates were tied together now. The leaders wanted a weapon. The people wanted a trophy. But Cale saw something different. He saw a woman who had chosen not to kill him when she could have. A woman who waited. A woman who was no longer just a stranger in chains. She was Lyra. And from this night forward, nothing would ever be the same. The fortress bells rang in the distance, but Cale did not move. The message still lay on his table. Its words sharp as blades. Bring the alien to us. Show her strength. He sat across from Lyra. She was unchained now. Her wrists free, though the iron collar still clung to her neck like a wound. She watched him silently, her silver skin glowing faintly in the firelight. "You know what they want," Cale said. Her voice was calm, steady. "Weapon." He nodded. His leaders wanted her power. The same power he had seen glow in the darkness. The same power that made the chains tremble. But Cale also knew one truth once. They saw what she could do. They would never let her go. "Then why don't you escape?" he asked. For the first time, her eyes softened. She touched the collar at her throat. "This, not just metal. This cage of mind weakens me. Still, I wait. Wait for what?" Her gaze locked with his. "To see you," Cale frowned. "Me. You fight for them, but also against them. You stand in between." Cale fell silent. He had no answer. He wanted to believe he fought for honor, but what honor was there in owning chains? That night, Cale's house was attacked. The door burst open, soldiers rushing in, their blades drawn. "By order of the council, the alien comes with us." Cale drew his sword, his instincts sharp. Steel clashed in the narrow hall, sparks flying. But even Cale could not fight 5 men at once. Then it happened. Lyra moved. Her chains rattled as she rose. The silver lines on her body blazing like fire. She lifted her hands, and the air itself seemed to shatter. The soldiers were thrown back, as if struck by an unseen storm. Their swords flew from their hands, clattering to the ground. The room glowed with her power. Her eyes burned like stars. The soldiers crawled away, terrified. Cale stood frozen, his sword still in his grip, his heart racing. He had seen many things in war, but never this. Lyra's power faded slowly, the glow dimming until she was just a woman again. She turned to him, her voice heavy with warning. "Now they know," she said. "They will never stop." The next day, Cale walked the streets with her by his side. People stared, whispering. Some looked at him with awe, others with hatred. A man spat at the ground. Traitor, protecting that thing. Cale ignored them, but the words cut deep. For the first time, he felt the world turning against him. When they reached the edge of the city, Cale stopped. If you stay, they will use you. If you leave, they will hunt you. Either way, your life is in danger. Lyra studied him, her face unreadable. Then she asked a question he did not expect. Why protect me? Cale opened his mouth, but no words came. Why was he protecting her? Because she had spared him. Because she was more than a weapon. Or because something deeper had begun to grow between them. Finally, he said, because you are not a prize, and you are not my slave. You are something more. For the first time, Lyra's expression softened into something like a smile. It was faint, fragile, but real. That night, they sat together in the quiet of the forest, far from the city lights. Cale lit a small fire, and Lyra watched the flames dance. On my world, she said slowly, her words broken but clearer. Fire means life. We gather around it. We tell stories. We remember who we are. Cale looked at her. Tell me a story. Her eyes glowed faintly as she spoke. She told him of her people, tall and proud, who lived among rivers of light and forests that sang with the wind. She told him of skies filled with stars brighter than suns, and of the night the warships came. Her voice trembled only once when she spoke of her capture. But then she grew silent. Cale listened, every word carving itself into his heart. 4. The first time, she was not just an alien to him. She was a person with a home, a family, and pain deeper than any wound he had known. When the fire burned low, Lyra looked at him with steady eyes. You fight for me. Why? She asked again. Cale met her gaze. This time he had an answer. Because I see you. Not chains, not power, just you. For a long moment, they did not speak. The night wrapped around them, the fire crackling softly. Something passed between them then, something unspoken but strong. It was not love, not yet, but it was trust. The first bond, and in that bond, Cale felt something he had never felt before. A purpose greater than war, greater than honor. He felt the weight of choice. Far away, the fortress bells rang again, louder this time. The city would not forgive him. The council would not stop, but Cale no longer cared. For the first time, he was ready to stand against them. Not for himself, but for her. For Lyra. The council chambers were filled with smoke and firelight. Long banners hung from the walls, painted with the crest of the empire. The leaders sat in their high chairs, their eyes cold and sharp as blades. Cale stood before them, his armor scratched, his face hard. Beside him, 2 guards dragged Lyra into the hall. The collar around her neck glowed faintly, her wrists once more bound in iron. She walked with her head high, proud even in chains. The leader's voice boomed. Cale, you are our champion. You are our soldier. And yet you hide her power from us? Why? Cale said nothing. His jaw tightened, his hand twitching toward the sword at his side. Another leader leaned forward. We saw what she did. The soldiers you killed that night, they spoke before they died. She is a weapon. She can win us wars. She belongs to us, not to you. The hall grew silent. Every eye turned to Cale, waiting for his answer. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low, but steady. She belongs to no one. Gasps filled the chamber. The leaders' faces darkened with fury. She is not human. One spat. She is not equal. She is nothing but a prize, a tool. Cale's eyes burned. She is Lyra. The council rose to their feet. The decision was swift. You defy us, the head leader declared. Then you are no longer our champion. From this day, you are an enemy of the Empire. Guards, take them both." The soldiers moved quickly, steel flashing in the torchlight. Kale's sword leaped from its sheath. The hall erupted in chaos. Steel clashed against steel, the sound echoing through the chamber. Kale fought with all his skill, his movements fast, precise. Every strike meant to protect the woman at his side, but there were too many. For every soldier he cut down, 2 more stepped forward, and then the air changed. The chains around Lyra rattled violently. The silver lines on her body blazed brighter than ever before. She lifted her hands, and the ground shook. The torches bent as if a great wind swept through the chamber. The soldiers were thrown back like broken dolls, their weapons clattering against the stone floor. The leaders screamed in fear. "Control her! Stop her!" But Kale only stood still, his eyes fixed on her. He did not raise his blade, because in that moment he realized his choice had already been made. The two of them fled the council chambers, the city rising in chaos behind them. Bells rang out, warning of betrayal. Soldiers gathered in the streets, shouting orders. Kale and Lyra slipped into the shadows, moving through alleys, through the smoke of torches. Every corner was dangerous, every face an enemy. At last, they reached the forest beyond the city walls. The trees swallowed them, the sounds of pursuit fading slowly. When they stopped to breathe, Kale looked at her. She stood tall, her chest rising and falling with each breath, her silver skin glowing faintly in the moonlight. "You saved me," he said. Her eyes met his. "No, you saved me. You choose." Kale nodded. The words were true. He had chosen not gold, not honor, not loyalty to men who ruled with iron hands. He had chosen her days past. They moved from place to place, always hiding, always hunted. The Empire declared them both traitors. Posters with Kale's face were nailed to wooden doors, warnings spread across villages. The hero has betrayed. U.S. He shelters the alien. But Kale did not regret it. At night, by the fire, they spoke more. Lyra's words grew clearer, her voice stronger. She told him of her home, of rivers that glowed with living light, of skies where storms sang instead of thundered. Kale listened, his heart heavy with the thought that her world might be gone forever. One night, Kale asked her, "If you could go back, would you?" Her eyes softened. "Yes, but not alone." Kale looked into the flames. Her answer was simple, but it carried weight. She was no longer waiting only for freedom. She was waiting for someone to walk that path with her. But danger was never far. Scouts searched the forests. Soldiers burned villages, looking for signs of them. The Empire's fury grew stronger each day. One evening, Kale and Lyra stood on a hill, watching smoke rise from the distance. Villages were paying the price for their defiance. "They will not stop," Kale said. His voice was heavy with guilt. Lyra's gaze was steady. "Then we fight." Kale turned to her. "Fight against the Empire. Against all of them." "Yes," she said simply. "One life in chains is no life at all. Better to fight, better to be free." Kale looked at her, the firelight reflecting. In her eyes, he saw no fear there, only strength. And in that moment, he realized something he had not wanted to admit. His life was no longer his own. His battles were no longer his own. His fate was tied to hers forever. The choice had been made, not gold, not glory, not empire, but Lyra. And Kale knew once a man chooses, there is no turning back. The forest no longer felt safe. Every night, Kale and Lyra heard the horns of soldiers in the distance. Sometimes torches glowed through the trees, weaving like fire snakes. Sometimes dogs barked, their howls carrying through the night. The Empire would not stop until both of them were court-killed. Cale's body carried the marks of endless fight, scratches on his arms, bruises across his chest, a thin cut on his cheek that never healed. But he pressed on. Because whenever he thought of stopping, he looked at Lyra. She walked beside him, silent and proud, her silver skin glowing faintly, even in darkness. And he remembered why he had chosen this path. One evening, they reached an abandoned watchtower, deep in the woods. Its stones were broken, its roof half collapsed, but it gave shelter. Cale lit a small fire, and Lyra sat across from him, her eyes reflecting the flames. "They come closer," she said. Her words were clearer now, each night sharpening her speech. Cale nodded grimly. "Yes, the Empire wants you, and they want me dead." She tilted her head. "You regret." Cale shook his head slowly. "No, I regret nothing." For the first time, a small smile touched her lips, but the peace did not last. At dawn, Cale woke to the sound of footsteps. Many footsteps. He rushed to the broken window and saw them, dozens of soldiers marching through the trees, led by a captain in black armor. "They found us," Cale whispered before he could act. Arrows hissed through the air. One struck the wall beside him, another shattered the fire. Soldiers poured into the tower, shouting, swords raised. Cale's blade was in his hand in an instant. Steel clashed, sparks flew. He fought with the fury of a cornered wolf, every strike meant to keep the soldiers away from Lyra. But there were too many. Then the ground trembled. Lyra rose, her collar sparking with angry light. The silver lines across her body blazed like fire rivers. She lifted her hands, and a wave of unseen force exploded through the room. Soldiers screamed as they were thrown against the walls, weapons flying from their hands. The captain staggered, but did not fall. He raised a strange device, a metal rod, glowing with red light. The moment it hummed, Lyra screamed. Her body shook, the glow dimming. The collar around her neck burned like fire. Cale's blood turned to ice. They had made a weapon against her. "Stay back." The captain roared. "This creature is ours." Cale charged. His sword struck the rod, sparks flying. With a shout, he drove the captain back, steel clashing in the ruins of the tower. The fight was brutal, desperate. Every strike meant life or death. Finally, Cale's blade pierced through the captain's chest. The man gasped, eyes wide, then collapsed. The rod fell, its glow fading. Lyra dropped to her knees, her breath ragged. Cale rushed to her side, pulling the collar with both hands. It would not break. His arms strained, his muscles burned, but the iron only tightened. Her hand touched his. "Not now," she whispered, "but soon." They fled the tower before. More soldiers arrived. Their steps were unsteady, their breaths sharp. But together they vanished into the forest again. For hours they walked in silence. Finally, Cale stopped near a river. He dropped to his knees, splashing water on his face. "We cannot keep running," he said. His voice was rough, filled with exhaustion. "They will always find us." Lyra knelt beside him, her glowing eyes searched his. "Then we stop running." Cale frowned. "What do you mean?" She placed her hand on his chest. Her touch was warm, steady. "We fight, not just to survive, to win." Cale looked at her. At first, he saw only the alien, the woman, of silver skin and strange light. But now he saw something else. He saw strength, courage, and something that reached deeper, something that bound them together. He nodded slowly. "Then we fight, together." That night, as they rested by the river, Cale found himself watching her. The firelight played across her face, and for the first time, she looked almost human in her softness. "Lyra, He whispered. She turned to him, waiting. You saved me more times than I can count. You could have killed me, but you didn't. Why? Her answer was simple. Because you saw me. The words struck deep. They carried more weight than any oath, any battle cry. Cale reached out, hesitating, then touched her hand. She did not pull away. Their fingers stayed locked together in the silence of the night. In that moment, the bond between them was no longer just trust. It was something stronger, something unbreakable. Far away, the horns of the Empire sounded again. The hunt would never stop. But Cale no longer feared it, for now he had chosen his path. He had chosen her, and together they would not only escape, they would rise. The Empire came at dawn. The horns echoed through the valley, rolling like thunder. Drums followed, deep and endless, shaking the ground beneath Cale's boots. From the ridge above, he saw them, an army of soldiers, banners high, their armor catching the rising sun. They came not just to capture Lyra, they came to crush them both. Cale tightened his grip on his sword. His body was tired, wounded, but his spirit burned. Beside him, Lyra stood tall, her silver skin glowing faintly, the iron collar still locked around her neck. She looked calm, but her eyes carried storms. They will not stop, Cale said quietly. No, Lyra agreed. So we stop them. The soldiers poured into the valley like a flood. Arrows filled the sky. Cale raised his shield, steel ringing as the shaft slammed down. He charged forward, his sword cutting through the first wave of men. But there were too many. The captain at the front carried another red rod, the same cursed weapon that had weakened Lyra before. He raised it high, its glow burning against the morning light. Lyra staggered, her body trembling as the collar sparked. Pain flashed across her face. Cale's fury erupted. He tore through soldiers, his blade a storm of steel, and reached the captain. Their swords clashed again and again, sparks flying. With a roar, Cale drove his blade through the man's chest. The rod fell to the ground. He turned to Lyra, panting. Now, break free. She closed her eyes. Her hands rose to the collar. For a heartbeat, the chains of light tightened, burning her skin. But then the silver lines across her body blazed brighter than ever before. The collar cracked once, twice, then shattered into pieces. The ground shook. The air itself bent. Lyra rose, her body surrounded by a halo of pure light. The soldiers stumbled back in terror, shields raised, their faces pale. She lifted her hands, and the valley roared with power. Trees bent, rocks split, the earth itself shuddered. The soldiers' arrows burned to ash before they touched her. Their swords flew from their hands, ripped away by invisible force. Cale stood still, his heart pounding. He had seen her strength before, but never like this. This was not just power. This was freedom. The leaders at the back shouted in panic, "Stop her! Kill her!" But no one moved. Even hardened soldiers trembled before her. Lyra stepped forward, her voice carrying across the valley. It was no longer broken, no longer uncertain. It was strong, clear, and commanding. I am not your weapon. I am not your slave. I am Lyra of the stars, and I am free. The valley itself seemed to echo her words. The soldiers dropped their blades, falling to their knees. Some fled. Others simply stared, as if they had seen a goddess. Cale moved to her side, his sword still in his hand, but his eyes were only on her. In the chaos, in the silence that followed, he made his choice. He fell to one knee, not as her owner, not as her master, but as her equal. "Lyra," he said, his voice steady, "I am yours. Not as chains bind us, but as choice binds us. Before all who watch, I take you as my wife. Gasps rippled through the soldiers. The words struck harder than any blade. Lyra turned, her glowing eyes softening. For the first time, her power dimmed not from pain, but from peace. She placed her hand on his face, her touch gentle. "And I," she said, her voice warm, "take you as mine, not as master." As equal, the valley fell silent. The soldiers who remained could only watch their weapons forgotten. Two worlds had collided not in war, but in union. The leaders screamed in rage, but their voices carried no power. Their army had seen something greater than commands, greater than fear. They had seen love defy chains. Kale rose, his hands still locked with hers. Together they stood, man and alien, husband and wife. In that moment, they were not fugitives. They were not hunted. They were not broken. They were united. The empire would still come. More battles would rise. But Kale knew, deep in his heart, that nothing could break them now, because a man's sword can be taken. His honor can be stolen. His life can be crushed, but his choice, his bond can never be chained. And Kale had chosen her forever.